The President of the United States, before a criminal grand jury, swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Tonight, the Clinton tapes.
This is a special expanded edition of the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
The Clinton presidency now hinges in part on the American public's reaction to 4 hours of videotape broadcast worldwide today. Good evening. CBS is devoting a full hour on most CBS stations to complete coverage of the president's grand jury testimony and a lot of new information that came out today. The Republican-controlled House Judiciary Committee made the video public, along with more than 3,000 pages of documents from the Starr investigation, and those documents have a lot of new revelations. On the tape, the president admits he was alone with Monica Lewinsky approximately 9 times, but he denies that they had sexual relations as he understood the strictly legal definition. The White House says the tape shows the president's conduct, quote, does not rise to the level of an impeachable offense. CBS's coverage begins with Bob Schieffer on Capitol Hill. We caution you that some of what you're about to hear tonight may not be suitable for children. Bob?
Well, Dan, it was beyond anything that America has ever seen. For the better part of 4 hours, prosecutors tried to get the President of the United States to admit that he lied under oath when he told Paula Jones's lawyers he did not have sex with Monica Lewinsky. The President's rationale was that the Jones lawyers' definition of sex did not include the oral kind, so he was truthful. But he gave few details beyond a prepared statement.
When I was alone with Miss Lewinsky on certain occasions in early 1996 and once in early 1997, I engaged in conduct that was wrong. These encounters did not consist of sexual intercourse. They did not constitute sexual relations as I understood that term to be defined at my January 17, 1998 deposition. But they did involve inappropriate, intimate contact.
Again and again, prosecutors tried to get him to back off that statement and admit he had sex with Ms. Lewinsky. But over and over, he found ways to sidestep the question.
I'm not going to answer that question because I believe it's a question about conduct that whatever the answer to it is, does not bear on the perjury, because oral sex performed on the deponent under this definition is not sexual relations.
Eventually, grand jurors became exasperated with the legalisms.
Mr. President, among the many remaining questions of the grand jurors is one that they would like answered directly without relation to, without regard to inferences, which is the following. Did Monica Lewinsky perform oral sex on you? They would like a direct answer to that, yes or no.
Well, that's not the first time that question's been asked, but since I believe, and I think any person, reasonable person would believe, that that is not covered in the definition of sexual relations I was given, I'm not going to answer except to refer to my statement.
At times, the president seemed remorseful it had all come out, but he denied ever asking Ms. Lewinsky to lie.
Did I want this to come out? No. Was I embarrassed about it? Yes. Did I ask her to lie about it? No.
At another point, he lashed out at Jones's lawyers, saying they had joined forces with longtime enemies to do him in.
My goal in this deposition was to be truthful, but not particularly helpful. I did not wish to do the work of the Jones lawyers. I deplored what they were doing. I deplored the innocent people they were tormenting and traumatizing. I deplored their illegal leaking. I deplored the fact that they knew, once they knew our evidence, that this was a bogus lawsuit, and that because of the funding they had from my political enemies, they were putting ahead. I deplored it, but I was determined to walk through the minefield of this deposition without violating the law, and I believe I did.
In the end, he was almost philosophical, saying he knew somehow it would all come to what it had.
But I knew that the minute there was no longer any contact, she would talk about this. She would have to. She couldn't help it. It was a part of her psyche. So I had put myself at risk, sir.
Well, for sure he did that. But for all those advance leaks, and we heard them from both Democrats and Republicans, that the president had somehow lost control of himself during this session, all of that proved false. At all times, he appeared in control, Dan.
Bob Schieffer, thanks. Still to come on CBS's special edition Evening News. The state of the prosecutor's case for impeachable offenses. New information about Monica Lewinsky and Linda Tripp in documentary evidence released today. And America's first reaction to the presidential tapes. Before President Clinton began his testimony to the Starr grand jury, prosecutors reminded him of his right against self-incrimination, warned him that if he lied to or intentionally misled the grand jury, he could be prosecuted for perjury. Keep in mind they knew that the videotape was rolling. As CBS News White House correspondent Scott Pelley reports, the special prosecutor contends the president violated that oath on the videotape. Scott?
Dan, the president's grand jury testimony is the heart of Starr's case. Starr alleges that the president first committed perjury in order to beat a lawsuit and then lied to the grand jury to derail the criminal investigation. Starr claims that much of the proof is in the president's own words. The testimony begins with the same oath Mr. Clinton swore in the Paula Jones sexual harassment suit.
I do.
Impeachment allegation number 1 says that Mr. Clinton lied in the Jones case. Lied when he said he never had sex with Lewinsky. Lied when he said he couldn't remember being alone with her. Before the grand jury, Mr. Clinton contradicted his former testimony in the first 4 words of his prepared statement.
When I was alone with Miss Lewinsky on certain occasions in early 1996 and once in early 1997, I engaged in conduct that was wrong.
Mr. Clinton insisted he told the truth when he swore that he had never had sexual relations with Lewinsky because he said that term applies only to intercourse.
I'll bet the grand jurors, if they were talking about 2 people they know and said they have a sexual relationship, they meant they were sleeping together. They meant they were having intercourse together.
Impeachment allegation number 2 says Mr. Clinton lied to the grand jury. In her testimony before the grand jury, Lewinsky said there were 10 sexual encounters during which Mr. Clinton touched her breasts and genitals.
The question is, if Monica Lewinsky says that while you were in the Oval Office area, you touched her breasts, would she be lying?
That is not my recollection. My recollection is that I did not have sexual relations with Miss Lewinsky, and I'm staying on my former statement about that.
If she
my statement is that I did not have sexual relations as defined by that.
If she says that you kissed her breast, would she be lying?
I'm going to revert to my former statement.
Okay. If Monica Lewinsky says that while you were in the Oval Office area, you touched her genitalia, would she be lying? And that calls for a yes, no, or reverting to your former statement.
I will revert to my statement on that.
Impeachment allegation 9 says Mr. Clinton tampered with the testimony of his secretary, Betty Curry. Curry testified that Mr. Clinton asked her a series of leading questions about Lewinsky, such as, "We were never alone, right?"
I do not remember how many times I talked to Betty Curry or when. I can't possibly remember that. I do remember when I first heard about this story breaking, trying to ascertain what the facts were, trying to ascertain what Betty's perception was.
Impeachment allegation 11 says Mr. Clinton obstructed justice by lying to his top aides, knowing they would testify to the grand jury.
I recall telling a number of those people that I didn't have, either I didn't have an affair with Monica Lewinsky or didn't have sex with her.
Repeatedly, Mr. Clinton dissected individual words. He was asked what his attorney, Bob Bennett, meant in the Jones deposition when Bennett told the judge, quote, "There is absolutely no sex of any kind in any manner, shape, or form."
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is.
Yes.
If is means is and never has been, that's one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement.
What about being alone?
You were alone with Monica Lewinsky, weren't you?
Well, it depends on how you define alone.
Mr. Clinton also tried to convince the jury that the Jones lawsuit was politically motivated, designed, he said, to pummel him.
That was their strategy, and they did a good job of it, and they got away with it. I've been subject to quite a lot of illegal leaking, and they had a very determined, deliberate strategy because their real goal was to hurt me. When they knew they couldn't win the lawsuit, they thought, well, maybe we can pummel him. Maybe they thought I'd settle. Maybe they just thought they would get some political advantage out of it.
In the end, grand jurors were frustrated. They asked why the president wouldn't give them straight answers. They asked Mr. Clinton to stay beyond the allotted 4 hours, but the president refused. Dan?
Scott Pelley, thanks. Now, you've heard from the president straight ahead new information about what Monica Lewinsky told the grand jury, and Ken Starr is investigating whether somebody tampered with the Linda Tripp tapes and raises the possibility of some perjury involved with the tapes. That and more on the White House Under Fire, coming right up here on CBS.
He's not coming right out and lying, but he's kind of skirting around, not lying, but not telling the truth, just trying to cover himself.
Along with the videotape of President Clinton, the House Judiciary Committee today released the complete text of Monica Lewinsky's testimony to the Starr grand jury. There's a lot of new information in it. CBS News correspondent Rita Braver reports what we learned from those documents.
In her first appearance, the prosecutors ran the show. They took Lewinsky through the full story of her relationship with the president and even got her to disclose that she was peeved last January when she saw these romantic pictures of the Clintons. I was jealous, and it just seemed sort of an aspect of their relationship he had never really revealed to me. But the day Lewinsky came back here, after they heard from the president, the grand jurors really took over, asking what any of us might want to know. When Lewinsky testified, I fell in love, a grand juror asked, was it love or sexual obsession? More love with a little bit of obsession. The grand jurors seemed troubled that Lewinsky had a previous affair with another married man. And then you turn around and do it again, one scolded. At one point, the questions about sexual activities got so explicit, Lewinsky asked, can I hide under the table? A key part of the testimony was left out of the famous Starr report. What happened when prosecutors nabbed Lewinsky after her final meeting with Linda Tripp? She testified that for hours, they kept her from calling her lawyer or her mother. Prosecutor Jackie Bennett telling her, you're 24, you're smart, you're old enough, you don't need to call your mommy. And contrary to Starr's public statements, Lewinsky claims, they told me that I'd have to place calls or wear a wire to call Betty Curry, Vernon Jordan, and possibly the president. At the end of her testimony, Lewinsky told the grand jury, no one ever asked me to lie, and I was never promised a job for my silence. I'm really sorry for everything that's happened. And here she began to cry, I hate Linda Tripp. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
And there's a lot more about Linda Tripp out tonight and her role, her alleged role in this case, beyond just secretly recording her, quote, friend Monica Lewinsky. As CBS's Phil Jones reports now, Tripp herself is now under investigation for perjury.
I'm a witness in a federal investigation. I have no comment.
As it turns out, Linda Tripp is more than a witness. She is a target for perjury. 9 of her secretly recorded Lewinsky tapes have been tampered with, and investigators want to know if she lied about her involvement or knowledge of the tampering.
I'm an average American who found herself in a situation not of her own making.
In documents released today, Monica Lewinsky portrays Tripp as more than an innocent victim. On the stained Lewinsky blue dress, Lewinsky claims that Tripp told her to put it in a safe deposit box because it could be evidence one day. Regarding relations with the president, Tripp allegedly told Lewinsky that an affair with the president would be a neat thing to tell her grandkids.
I urged her to tell the truth right up until the end.
Lewinsky makes Tripp's so-called counseling sound more like threats. Says Lewinsky, Tripp, who feared losing her Pentagon job, indicated she would write a tell-all book and rat on Lewinsky if she got fired for testifying in the Paula Jones sexual harassment lawsuit. President Clinton was suspicious of Tripp long before Lewinsky turned sour on her. In July 1997, Mr. Clinton asked Lewinsky whether she had told Tripp about their relationship. And even some members of the grand jury were leery about Tripp. According to Lewinsky, one juror told her, even though you have a lot of hate for Tripp, leave her where she is, because whatever goes around comes around. Phil Jones, CBS News, Washington.
I want to remind you that in most of these CBS stations, we're bringing you a special one-hour edition of the CBS Evening News on the White House Under Fire. Our second half will include an update from 60 Minutes correspondent Ed Bradley on former White House volunteer Kathleen Willey and her story of a sexual advance by the president, what the president says about that. Straight ahead just now, the President's Day at the UN and also in other places in New York, the stock market's reaction to all this, and then we'll have some of the rest of the day's news, including the latest on a dangerous hurricane, and after that, more about the presidency. So stick in here with us.
I think that he's being discredited for political reasons. I don't know of a president yet that hasn't been human.
Even as television screens everywhere were all Clinton all the time today, the president himself was receiving what appeared to be an exceptionally warm welcome from the world community at the United Nations. CBS's Bill Plant was there.
This was exactly what the White House hoped for. A standing ovation for Mr. Clinton as he entered the UN General Assembly at the very hour his videotape testimony was being broadcast to the nation to urge a united fight against terrorism.
The new technologies of terror and their increasing availability, along with the increasing mobility of terrorists, raise chilling prospects of vulnerability. This is a threat to all humankind.
Also in New York, Hillary Rodham Clinton continued her unwavering public support for her husband. Mr. Clinton joined her at a forum on the global economy later in the day, and both pointedly avoided any comment on the release of the president's testimony. But Mr. Clinton's press secretary was not silent. He called the process leading to the release of the materials deeply flawed, but said the American people would decide for themselves.
There will be judgments that are going to be made in living rooms and at dining tables around the country tonight. There's no way that we can predict what people will think.
The White House has absolutely no power to influence the congressional investigation, so it is left to argue that Mr. Clinton is engaged and is in charge, and that what he did, no matter what you may think of it, does not rise to the level of an impeachable offense. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the president in New York.
Some stock market analysts said Wall Street took heart today from President Clinton's warm welcome at the UN and the way the grand jury testimony went. This could help explain, at least in part, why the Dow Jones came back from 185 points down early in the day to close almost 38 points up. The NASDAQ index rose almost 17 points. Joining us now is CBS News business correspondent Anthony Mason. Anthony, how did Wall Street react to the president's videotape testimony?
Dan, just like everyone else, Wall Street was worried what they'd see in those tapes today. When there were no surprises, the street seemed to relax a bit. In fact, almost at the exact moment the broadcast of the testimony ended, the market turned around abruptly. After being down 185, as you said, it closed up 37.
Now, are the markets still watching the president? What should we be looking for?
Well, the key thing, Dan, the president meets with Japanese Prime Minister Obuchi here in New York tomorrow. Wall Street, indeed all the world markets, will be watching to see whether President Clinton still has the political muscle to pressure Japan to get its economic act together and lead a recovery in Asia. Dan?
Anthony Mason. Now, other major story tonight, a lot of nights this would have been the lead, an extremely dangerous Hurricane George in the Caribbean. After hitting the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Kitts, and Antigua, the hurricane's eye is expected to arrive tonight over Puerto Rico. Haiti and then the Bahamas also seem to be in its path. This hurricane has just been upgraded to a Category 3. Remember, that's on a 5 scale. It's a very dangerous hurricane. We go down to our consultant, Brian Norcross, at our CBS News Weather Center in Miami. Brian.
Dan, it looks like this is going to be one of the big hurricane events for Puerto Rico, probably rivaling the 1928 storm there, which everyone that lives on that island remembers and talks about and has talked about for some time. Let's go to the satellite picture here and let me show you where it is. There's Puerto Rico right there. Now next, as you say, it's going to move, and we see no reason why this continued movement toward Florida is not going to continue. The only question is it going to go over the mountains here of Hispaniola and Cuba and be weakened dramatically, or is it going to stay more offshore? But high pressure is well established to the north here, and we think that is going to continue to keep this storm moving on this west-northwest path. Hurricane watches for Florida as soon as tomorrow night.
Brian Norcross, and I emphasize this move to Category 3. U.S. Olympic track great Florence Griffith Joyner died today in California, apparently from a heart problem. She was only 38. The rocket-fast sprinter everyone called FloJo won 6 Olympic medals for the USA, including 3 golds at the 1988 Games in Seoul. Her world records for women still stand in the 100 and 200-meter dashers. Coming up here on CBS, more about President Clinton, Congress, and the question of does the president stay or go on this special edition of the CBS Evening News. Joining us again now for a look ahead at this fast developing and whether you like it or not momentous story for our country, Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer and White House correspondent Scott Pelley. Bob, what do you see happening next? Where do we go from here?
Well, the committee is going to have to decide what to do with the rest of this information that Starr sent them, and then probably as early as late next week, they'll have to start getting briefings from their own congressmen about whether this constitutes an impeachable offense. After that, they'll vote on whether to recommend to the House to commence impeachment hearings.
Scott, with Newt Gingrich in charge of the House of Representatives, what does the White House see ahead?
Dan, the president's impeachment defense team is on Capitol Hill nearly every day now. The argument they make is this. Yes, the president lied to the American people. He lied to the White House staff. He stretched this out over almost 9 months now and may have lied under oath. But they argue that no matter what you think of all of that, it simply does not rise to the level of impeachment. Dan?
Scott Pelley. Now, some CBS stations will be going to local news or other programming next, but for most CBS viewers, we'll be back in a moment with more news and analysis on whether President Clinton stays in office for the rest of his term or is one way forced to go. The White House under fire. That'll be on the half hour coming up next on most of these CBS stations. For the moment, Dan Rather at CBS News World Headquarters in New York. Hope to see you again soon. Good evening again, and welcome to the second half of this special edition, expanded edition of the CBS Evening News about the future of the Clinton presidency. This follows the nationwide, indeed worldwide, broadcast today of 4 hours plus of the president's testimony before the Starr grand jury. Now, the special prosecutor accuses President Clinton of lying under oath on the video, and it's Ken Starr's view that's possibly an impeachable offense. The White House says that the tape shows the president committed, quote, no impeachable offense. On the video, the president is seen insisting that he did not lie, at least not by the strict legal sense, in the Paula Jones deposition about his relationship with Monica Lewinsky.
I said, I have not had sex with her as I define it. That was true. And did I hope that I would never have to be here on this day giving this testimony? Of course. But I also didn't want to do anything to complicate this matter further. So I said things that were true. They may have been misleading, and if they were, I have to take responsibility for it, and I'm sorry.
And the president's videotape testimony was made public today by the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee. But that wasn't all. Remember all those boxes of evidence that Ken Starr, the special prosecutor, delivered to Capitol Hill? Well, some of that was released today as well, and as CBS's Eric Ingberg has been sorting through it, turns out there's a lot of new information in it. Eric?
Dan, Kenneth Starr sent the House thousands of pages of documents gathered by FBI agents and federal prosecutors. There are several hundred places where material has been blacked out of the documents, most of these for what the House Judiciary Committee calls privacy reasons. 17 deletions are because of, quote, sexual descriptions. Starr gathered evidence from phone records to credit card bills. But the critical piece was that dress, which provided DNA evidence against Mr. Clinton. Lewinsky adamantly told the grand jury she didn't keep this dress as a souvenir. She merely wanted to save it to wear in front of her slim cousins because it made her look thin. Linda Tripp, who was supposedly a friend then, told her to put it away in a safe deposit box. As for the beret seen round the world, she wore it to conceal a bad hair day and apologized for the dumb hat to Mr. Clinton, but he said it was cute. Lewinsky's notes and letters, some sent, some not, chart a romance she thought was serious but was never fulfilled. Asked by the grand jury why there was no intercourse, she answered, the president said that at his age, that there was too much of consequence in doing that, and that when I got to be his age, I would understand. And he was obsessed with secrecy. He left only brief phone messages on her answering machine. She wrote high school romance-type notes, calling him handsome, complaining he didn't see her enough. She asks, is it that you don't like me anymore, or are you scared? On another day, walked the streets thinking about how content I would be to walk the streets at your side. In May of '97 came what she called Dump Day or D-Day. The president broke it off. Lewinsky told the grand jury he couldn't take the guilt anymore and wanted to do the right thing in God's eyes and do the right thing for his family. She implored him, "Please do not do this to me. I feel disposable, used." The affair was ending, but the federal case was just starting. Dan?
Eric Ingberg. So, thousands of pages of documents from Ken Starr's operation, the president's testimony, his grand jury testimony and videotape. Is all of this leading to the possible impeachment, removal of the president from office? CBS's Wyatt Andrews reports it may depend mightily on the reaction of the American public.
Mr. President, you understand that your testimony here today is under oath.
I do.
This is what Republicans wanted the nation to see. The president swearing to tell the whole truth and then, at a minimum, evading it. To many Republicans on the Judiciary Committee, if the country's chief law enforcement officer tells lies to a federal grand jury, it's an obvious high crime and misdemeanor.
I believe that the president has an obligation to faithfully execute the laws of the United States. If he lies before a grand jury, if he commits perjury before a court and a deposition, that is inconsistent with his duty under the Constitution.
But most Democrats say the president's hair-splitting, while evasive, is not perjury.
I think Ken Starr cannot conclude that the president has lied under oath.
There's another question. Assume the president is guilty of perjury and obstruction. If it's all about sex, some are asking, so what?
There's a very serious question to be raised as to whether or not these offenses, even if true, amount to impeachable offenses.
For the next few days, most of Congress will have a giant collective finger raised to test the political wind. High crimes and misdemeanors are supposed to be decided by the House, but this is such a close political call, many members are waiting for the public to judge the video.
If the public is still confident that he can be commander-in-chief and chief executive, then I think the House will not impeach. If, on the other hand, the public loses faith in him, then there's enough technically there that they can impeach.
Democrats will oppose the idea, but some Republicans are already calling for a vote to launch an impeachment inquiry by October 1st, with Republicans hoping to benefit from congressional elections just 6 weeks from now. Whatever happens next probably happens fast. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, Washington.
A quick look now at the constitutional process of impeachment. It begins with the Republican-controlled House Judiciary Committee holding hearings and deciding whether to recommend articles of impeachment to the full House. If any of those articles is adopted by the House, the president is impeached, the equivalent of an indictment. That would require a straight majority vote of the House, where Republicans now far outnumber Democrats 228 to 206. If the president is actually impeached by the House, he then would go on trial in the Senate, with the Chief Justice of the United States presiding. If the Senate votes to convict, the president would be removed from office. Conviction requires a 2/3 majority in the Senate, or 67 votes out of 100. Right now, Republicans hold 55 Senate seats, so if they all voted to convict, they would only need 12 Democratic votes to remove the president. Some Democratic senators have already indicated a willingness to impeach. Well, while they indicated a willingness to consider impeachment, it's a Senate trial, if there is to be one, is still a long way away. Still to come on tonight's expanded CBS Evening News. More reaction to the president's testimony. I'll speak with CBS News analyst about what's ahead for Congress, the White House, and the country. President Clinton's videotaped testimony included a statement in which he clearly admitted a, quote, inappropriate relationship with Monica Lewinsky, but he declined to elaborate. That was not enough for Ken Starr, who was in the room, and his prosecutors. They had very specific questions which the president was not comfortable answering, he said. Now, once again, I want to say that what you're about to hear contains some graphic language in this exchange.
The question is, if Monica Lewinsky says that while you were in the Oval Office area, you touched her breast, would she be lying?
That is not my recollection. My recollection is that I did not have sexual relations with Ms. Lewinsky, and I'm staying on my former statement about that.
If she
my statement is that I did not have sexual relations as defined by that.
If she says that you kissed her breast, would she be lying?
I'm going to revert to my former statement.
Okay. If Monica Lewinsky says that while you were in the Oval Office area you touched her genitalia, would she be lying? And that calls for a yes, no, or reverting to your former statement.
I will revert to my statement on that.
Now, the president was also asked repeatedly, the prosecutors really honed in about his testimony for the Paula Jones lawsuit. Ken Starr and his prosecutors wanted to know whether the president had told the truth when Mr. Clinton denied a sexual relationship with Lewinsky. But the president fought back. He criticized the motives of Jones's lawyers.
The real goal was to hurt me. When they knew they couldn't win the lawsuit, they thought, well, maybe we can pummel him. Maybe they thought I'd settle. Maybe they just thought they would get some political advantage out of it. But that's what was going on here. Now, I'm trying to be honest with you, and it hurts me. And I'm trying to tell you the truth about what happened between Miss Lewinsky and me. But that does not change the fact that the real reason they were zeroing in on anybody was to try to get any person in there, no matter how uninvolved with Paula Jones, no matter how uninvolved with sexual harassment, so they could hurt me politically. That's what was going on, because by this time, this thing had been going on a long time. They knew what our evidence was. They knew what the law was in the circuit in which we were bringing this case. And so they just thought they would take a wrecking ball to me and see if they could do some damage.
After all this, does the president remain in office? Where does it go from here? We turn to two top CBS News analysts, distinguished journalist and former White House Communications Director Don Baer, and the widely experienced Washington journalist Gloria Borger. Don, how is the White House reacting tonight inside?
Well, Dan, obviously they are relieved. They believe that they beat the expectations game on this, and that for the first time in a while, they have given the two-thirds of the American people who say they want to keep the president in office something to hang on to. Now, while I say they're relieved, they are not gloating, because this is clearly a White House that has been through too much in the last 9 months to be overconfident at this point.
How do the president and his aides move ahead?
Well, their strategy is simple. Whether they can get there is a harder thing to say. For them, it's closure sooner rather than later. And they want to move this thing forward. If the Republicans, in fact, have been chastened a bit by releasing the documents and the tape in the last day, the White House hopes that there's a chance that some sort of an agreement can be reached so that the president does not have to leave office but is punished in some way, censure of some sort. They're hoping that a group of wise men or graybeards here in Washington from the Republican and Democratic parties may be able to come together and bring senators and other members of Congress together to agree to some sort of a closure on this thing as soon as possible.
That's their hope. Gloria Borger, how did the president's performance play on Capitol Hill?
Well, the Democrats I talked to today said that this president may actually be quite lucky in his enemies. I mean, they believe that the Republicans have overplayed their hand by releasing the videotape, first of all, by hyping it beforehand. They believe that the Republicans have injected this issue of fairness into what really should be a bipartisan debate. And they also say, quite frankly, that the Republicans did what Bill Clinton could not do, and that is unite the Democrats, not necessarily in the president's corner, but against the Republicans for what they consider to be a breach of due process.
We have only a few seconds left, Gloria, but do or do not the Republicans want to string this out at least until the election?
I think the Republicans do want to string this out until the election, but they better be careful. They cannot let their personal hatred for this president guide their political instincts. It's dangerous.
Gloria Borger. Up next here on CBS 60 Minutes man Ed Bradley will revisit the story told by one of President Clinton's other accusers, former White House volunteer Kathleen Willey, in the light of the presidential testimony released today.
I'm always going to think he perjured himself, and there's probably some people that think he wouldn't, but he looks pretty bad on TV, and I think I kind of like seeing that because he always looks so polished.
The Ken Starr videotape of President Clinton sheds new light on a story that Ed Bradley brought us on 60 Minutes back in March. Accusations from former White House volunteer Kathleen Willey that the president sexually assaulted her. Ed joins us now with an update on this. Ed?
Dan, in his deposition today, the president denied the allegations that had been made by Kathleen Willey on 60 Minutes last spring. He was questioned by prosecutor Jackie Bennett in a sharp exchange.
Mr. President, let's move ahead to the episode on November 29, 1993, in which Mrs. Willey met you in your office at the Oval. The subject matter of the 60 Minutes broadcast a few months ago. You recall that episode?
I certainly do.
Mr. President, in fact, on that date, you did make sexual advances on Kathleen Willey. Is that not correct?
That's false.
You did grab her breast, as she said.
I did not.
You did place your hand on her groin area, as she said.
No, I didn't.
That is in sharp contrast to what Ms. Willie told me back in March.
He touched my breast with his hand, and then he took my hand and he put it on him.
Took your hand
Right.
and put it on him.
Mm-hmm.
Where on him?
On his genitals.
I asked Kathleen Willey about the president's denial in his sworn deposition in the Paula Jones case. If the president said that under oath, is he lying?
Yes.
He is lying.
Yes.
And then in today's tapes, there was this exchange where the president seemed to try to turn attention to Miss Willie's alleged behavior.
Did she make a sexual advance on you, Mr. President?
On that day, no, she did not. She was troubled.
On some other day?
I wouldn't call it a sexual advance. She was always very friendly, but I never took it seriously.
If the president was remorseful about Monica Lewinsky and regretted what had happened today, Dan, on the subject of Kathleen Willey, he once again denied the charges and attacked her credibility.
Coming up next year on CBS, we'll take you to the middle of America to hear what rank-and-file Americans say about what they saw and heard today, so stay here with us. Only a few thousand people call it home, but Center, Texas is as good a place as any to focus on the to and fro of the American public's debate about Congress, President Clinton, the politics of this, and the Clinton video from the grand jury was the center of attention today, as we hear from CBS's Bob McNamara.
Even in the middle of nowhere, they are in the middle of it all.
KDET in downtown Center, Texas, where we are the center of the universe.
86-year-old Mattie Dellinger
Hello, this is the party line.
is hosting the hottest show in town.
I've got an opinion about the president.
Is that you, Rodney?
This is me.
She knows most of her callers by name and knows how they feel about the scandal without asking.
I don't bring it up very much because they all riled up about it.
Here, public opinion is more personal than political.
He's our president. He's supposed to be an example for our children.
East Texas has always been a safe haven for Democrats. 2 years ago, when every other region in the state voted Republican, Bill Clinton won East Texas again. But now, even here, the scandal is taking a toll.
When I was alone with Miss Lewinsky.
Today, with the testimony by television, heartache has set in.
I think that our nation is grieving because of the whole situation.
In this small town, only the very oldest can say they've seen a lot of life. Mary White knows how adultery can hurt.
It's human nature, human frailty. It's just very sad.
Tonight, she is tired of it all and in tears.
I know in our town, people who have done bad, or anything, and if they go on and try to live right, people forgive them.
Now, let me finish.
Tonight, people here are mad at the man in the Oval Office,
This is a lying president.
mad at the man pursuing him,
Mr. Starr ought to be censored.
and they're mad we've ended up on this road, stuck in the middle. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Center, Texas.
Beyond Texas and America's borders, in countries that have a stake in U.S. world leadership, reviews of the Clinton grand jury testimony range from apathy to anger. CBS's Mark Phillips in London looks at the world reaction.
No matter where you were on the planet, there was little doubt what the news was today. But while the United States may be convulsed over the Lewinsky affair, overseas, they're worried about it for their own reasons.
So many countries, so many people want strong leadership of the United States to prevent some economical disasters.
In Germany, Bill Clinton's testimony knocked Chancellor Helmut Kohl's troubled election campaign off the top of newscasts. Kohl has actually said the American preoccupation with the scandal, quote, makes him want to vomit. And there was somber advice from the French.
Be a little quiet. Way of wisdom and preserve your democracy.
The fact is that while people here could have watched Bill Clinton's testimony today, few did. Many said they'd had enough.
The man is that leads the single most powerful country on earth. For his attention being diverted by something like this is frankly absurd.
Despite the explicitness of today's taped testimony, it's as if a kind of yuck fatigue has set in. It's getting harder and harder to shock people. Still, the attitude overseas to the scandal has changed. Bemusement has become concern. Concern that the country they look to for stability in a dangerous world has lost the plot. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
So the president's videotape testimony has been broadcast around the world. The question is, where does the case go next? The House Judiciary Committee has to decide formally whether to release 18 more boxes of documents and the president's testimony in the Paula Jones case. Most important, the committee is expected to formally decide by October 9 whether to begin a full impeachment inquiry. Finally, let's go back now to our lead correspondents on this story, CBS's Bob Schieffer and Scott Pelley. Bob, everybody had been led to expect a more irate president on the videotape. What happened?
Well, we heard that from Republicans when this deposition was first taken, and then we began to hear it from Democrats. I'm wondering if they tried to make it look like it was worse than it was, so when we finally saw the tape, it would be anticlimactic. In some ways, it was.
What happened, Scott? Is Ken Starr, or is he not finished investigating the President Clinton for all intents and purposes?
Not finished at all, Dan. In fact, the president has not just political worries, but legal ones as well. Allies of Ken Starr tell CBS News that prosecutors believe they have enough to indict the president criminally on charges of perjury. So when Mr. Clinton leaves office, either by resignation, impeachment, or living out his term, those charges will be waiting for him.
Scott Pelley at the White House with a footnote that there are reports that Ken Starr has long believed he may have enough evidence to indict the First Lady if he should choose to do so. We'll see. That's part of our world tonight. Dan Rather reporting for this special expanded one-hour edition of the CBS Evening News. Thanks for joining us. Good night.